If you're of a certain age and British, then there is a good chance that you remember when Princess Diana died. It was a cultural event and shocked the nation. Even I, who wasn't old enough to understand what the royals did. Come to think of it, I still don't. My point is though, it was a big thing. People are weird about the royals. They were and still are weirder about Diana, and she occupies a unique place in the nation's consciousness. To many, a slight on her name is the same as one on your mother. If you are one of those people, this is not the video for you. Even now, fictional works must tread carefully when depicting her. Just look at The Crown. It might be a surprise then to find out that Marvel gave the go-ahead for Di to be brought back to life in the Marvel universe, just 6 years after she died. Well, they kinda did. You'll see what I mean in a sec. So what's the origin to Princess Diana's Marvel debut? Well, it involves Professor X telling Diana that she's a mutant. And now I bet you're thinking, wow, they brought her back in X-Men? Oh no. X-Factor? Nope. Excalibur would be a good guess, but wrong again. X-Force? Now you're getting close. If you'd guessed X-Statix, go straight to the top of the class. If you're unfamiliar with them, X-Statix are a team of mutants who, rather than being brought together under Xavier's vision, these were mutants brought together for the fame and the money, formed in the X-Force series. Their adventures and acts of heroism were sold to TV stations, making them millions. They were, however, known for being short-lived, with team members constantly dying throughout the series. Definitely a more tongue-in-cheek title than its other X-series counterparts. You might be wondering why Marvel's Princess Diana doesn't look like our world's version though. And that's because Marvel caved and changed the character's name, hair colour and their origin story. Marvel caved because there were some raised eyebrows, tutting and even the odd stifled "good lord" as the well-to-do on this side of the pond reacted to the idea of Diana being in a comic. Unsurprisingly, this campaign was led by the royal household and national hate rag, the Daily Mail. Thus, we end up with dark-haired Henrietta Hunter. Poor Henrietta Hunter here was denied her royal titles and became a lowly celebrity superstar musician because of this campaign. In the comics, she had died on stage, electrocuted whilst performing by a tampered with microphone. But this was not the end for Henrietta. Now, the writer for X-Statix was Peter Milligan, and at the time of all the hubbub, he wrote an article for The Guardian explaining his reasoning for wanting to include Diana in the series, and he refers to her strange mutant powers that he became aware of once she died. For him, in the world of the X-Men, the mutants are feared and hated. In X-Statix, they have turned this around and made themselves stars, glamorous, rich and powerful. This seems to me to be pretty much what Diana did inside the royal family, which is true. Diana provided a boost in popularity to the royals at a time the public were becoming more indifferent to them. What Milligan also observed was, after making some dark jokes in the pub the day of her death, is that she held a mysterious power over people. This was made apparent by people not responding particularly well to those jokes. This idea of Diana having powers was the inspiration behind the 6-issue storyline, illustrated by Mike Allred with colours from Jay Bone, and helped develop the character. Henrietta, Diana's replacement, after her death, wanders the earth in her spirit form for several years before arriving back at her ancestral home and acquires a new body. A little magic and the body resembles her again, with this demonstrating a power for Henrietta, apparent immortality. This is a clear statement on fame and celebrity status by Milligan, but more importantly gave us the title for the series, Die Another Day. Sadly, this pun was stripped in the sweeping changes. You can perhaps see why the palace were a little worried and called it appalling. Instead, we get the milquetoast Back from the Dead arc, starting in issue 13. A covert, shady group were there ready to kidnap Henrietta on her resurrection, and this spurs X-Statix into action. Rather than worrying too much about her welfare, the team see an opportunity to garner more popularity and money by saving the former pop star. However, after fighting their way through the goons and getting her to the US, there is immediate friction between the team and Henrietta. Her self-proclaimed power of empathy picks up that they don't like her. She doesn't need to be liked by the team though, at least in the eyes of team owner Spike Freeman, aka $1 Trillion Man, who immediately gets to work in using Henrietta for his own benefit. He wrangles her into X-Statix as a team member, while simultaneously reaching out to her original and would-be again assassins, offering them a team of mutants called Eurotrash to take out Henrietta. In a fourth wall breaking moment, the establishment Brit Reggie describes a team that comprised the likes of Blind Ali and Surrender Monkey as being crude stereotypes. Spike replies, "Of course, it's for an American audience." With the establishment trying to kill Henrietta, and a fame-obsessed Spike trying to use her, I think most readers would have drawn comparisons to Diana anyway, so the changes seem a bit redundant. Henrietta is not powerless though, and is also using her fame and status to control the narrative, immediately seeking out TV channels to do interviews on, telling her side of the story. When she's kidnapped by Eurotrash, Henrietta proves quite adept at taking charge, talking the kidnappers into trying to better their position rather than just killing her, although their negotiations are interrupted by the rest of her team, who I guess rescue her, but again not for any sort of care about her welfare. In the preceding press conference, the mask slips a little as Henrietta asserts her position in X-Statix, essentially claiming control of the team with plans to use it for her charitable endeavours. The anarchist whispers to the orphan that they think they've created a monster. The shareholders and public agree with Henrietta that she should be in charge, which is too much for the rest of X-Statix, who agree that she must die. You can tell when Milligan tried to stretch the censorship a little, such as when the anarchist says, "Speaking of queens," followed up by Spike asking, "Have they decided how they are going to kill a certain ... pop star?" No doubt that question would originally have ended with Princess. But speaking of killing a certain pop star, the team confront her on a yacht where they plan to kill her before being interrupted by Lacuna, a mutant desperate to be on the team. Lacuna's impassioned message of how Henrietta stands for something earns Henrietta a stay of execution. Instead, the team head to Afghanistan of all places, in the hopes that a combat zone might do the job for them. When this issue was published, British troops had been in Afghanistan a couple of years. No one expected them to be there for a total of 13, costing hundreds of British and thousands of Afghan lives, not to mention all those from other nations. Milligan would have had no idea that Prince Harry would complete 2 tours there either, although his experience could not have been more different from his fictionalised mother's, who turned out to be quite the cold-blooded killer, slaying Taliban soldiers with her bare hands. This is probably not the acceptable image of royals in war that the palace wanted. Princes calling airstrikes and manning mounted guns from helicopters though, that's okay. Poor El Guapo though was left legless after Fat bounced a rocket away from Henrietta into their teammates' direction. Although X-Statix is a satirical and funny series, this image had echoes of those in papers at the time of the casualties from both Afghanistan and Iraq. The next plan to oust Henrietta involved getting her to solve the spate of random shootings that took the lives of 56 people. With no leads, the Secretary of Homeland Security's ratings plummet and cause him to resign. This meant even X-Statix wouldn't go near it until they had the idea of getting their new leader to head off the task, hoping it will kill her public standing. In another interview, Henrietta seizes the moment without thinking too much and declares herself the new Secretary of Homeland Security. The people love her for it, at least to start with. Her first action was to put out a clothing line to show the terrorists they weren't afraid. This strangely fails to scare the killers though, and Henrietta's ratings plummet. Then stuff starts to kick off. A villain called Mr. Code is behind the killings, and of course Spike, the team owner, knows this and gives him a call. He asks Mr. Code to kill Lacuna, who'd been investigating the team. You see, some of the team, with differing degrees of knowledge, had been selling chemical weapons to none other than Saddam Hussein, and Lacuna had been given a secret dossier outlining this. But she tells this to Guy Smith, the orphan, who karate kicks Spike's head right the way round in rage. The orphan isn't quick enough to stop Lacuna being shot though, but she does survive. The team then rally to find the dossier before Lacuna's lawyers can hand it to the media. They fail. To save their shattered reputation, the group call every media outlet and go take on Mr. Code head on. It goes badly, and Henrietta gets her neck snapped by Code. The orphan grabs Code and levitates high into the air before dropping the killer to his death. Mr. Code's body was rigged though, and an explosion is triggered, but Fat sacrifices himself to save the others. In the aftermath, after her second death, an entrepreneurial music label releases a new Henrietta track to capitalise on her increased popularity, mixing up snippets of old interviews. They call it Back from the Dead. The song is a hit, but there's an urban myth that those who start singing it will die unless they recite all the lyrics in 1 minute. This being X-Statix, that's not a myth, and these people do die in comical acts of violence. Dead Girl guesses this is Henrietta taking her rage out over her treatment by the record label, and X-Statix take it on themselves to visit the execs, only for one to have an explosive heart attack after singing it. Back at base, Milligan decides it's been a few too many pages since one of the X-Statix team had been killed, so poor El Guapo sings a few fateful lines before crashing his skateboard. To find out a bit more about what's going on, the team had Dead Girl sing a few lines which summoned the vengeful Henrietta, but being dead already, Dead Girl couldn't be killed and manages to speak to Henrietta. The pop star was restless and could only move on if the team helped her find her murderers. Back in Europa, where she was electrocuted, the team follow clues to find the establishment killers led by the President. The testimony received before this is an important one. She was becoming too popular. Her charities, her good work, her common touch, it made her powerful. Too powerful. She had to die. This is how a lot of the British public felt and still do about Diana, and Milligan knew this. Many thought she was murdered by the powers that be, rather than the victim of a terrible accident. The Palace wouldn't have known this line would have been in there, but I'm sure they are very happy that Marvel caved and removed the princess from the story. Back to the story though, and the team forced the European president to sing the song, summoning an enraged Henrietta. Her ghoulish, sunken features are the last thing the president and we see. That is the last we see of Henrietta. Is she now dead, her mission complete and her soul laid to rest? Or is she still out there, perhaps living a life outside of the public eye? I suspect we will never know. It's an interesting piece in the end, because for the most part, a lot of the story is sympathetic to Henrietta and therefore Diana. Despite the portrayal of her being a bit dim, pampered and manipulative, it was far from being overly negative. With so many trying to get a piece of her, it's hard not to sympathise. By causing the series to be altered, the Palace probably gave it more popularity than it would have otherwise. There's the quote, "The need for control is so desperate because it's so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort." Yep, I'm quoting Andor. With their need for control and media spinning, there are lots of similarities that can be drawn between the Palace and Spike, the team's owner. Regardless, Diana ends up being one of the least interesting bits of the story. Like the rest of the series, Milligan has a lot to say on sexuality, mutantism, racism, war, fame, money. It's a shame that Marvel felt the need to change this, but because of the writing, it doesn't feel like the story was affected at all.